Ricky here with DoD Contract Academy podcast. And today we have a return of sorts. Oliver Taylor, he himself was not on the podcast before, but Oliver works for Govly, and we talk all the time about, the different technologies they have there. And hey, Oliver, how you doing today?
Doing pretty good. How about you?
Good. Excited to have you on. I know you have a big announcement here for Govly, and for our listeners, they know that I interviewed the CEO a few episodes back, and I really like Govly because it is a very unique way to search for opportunities that otherwise might not be there, right? So why don't we start a little bit with what you do for Govly, and describe Govly, like, hey, what is Govly? Just like a quick recap for everybody.
Yeah, definitely. Well, for Govly, I'm the COO, and given that, I hope that this podcast gets better ratings than Mike's podcast earlier.
Ah.
So we're in competition there. Mike's the CEO, for those of you who don't know. And what Govly is, I could use some marketing terms, but just to explain it simply, Govly is a platform that allows prime contractors to aggregate all of their contract vehicles in a single place and then share those contract feeds. So all of the RFQs and all the data associated with them flowing through those contract vehicles, it allows them to share those with their partner network. So it's a network of individual stakeholders in the federal procurement supply chain arena. That's kind of the easiest, simplest way to think of Govly.
Okay. And then for everyone listening, some of you are going to be more familiar with searching for government opportunities than others. We know everything kind of originates with sam.gov, which is where you register your business to sell to the government. It's a clunky, not amazing website, which is why we also have a lot of research tools and search tools that are paid for, right? There's a whole list of them. I've covered some of them on the podcast. One thing that's interesting is that all federal opportunities, despite all of the regulations, right? And this is often misunderstood, all opportunities are not going to come through sam.gov. And that's because the government has a way of pre-competing companies and putting them on these large contract vehicles, usually referred to as category management. And we could probably spend hours talking about this and bore everyone. But the end result is you have contract vehicles like GSA, like NASA Soup, like ITES, like, you could probably talk to them even better than I could. And you have a bunch of companies on there that have already pre-competed. And so now there's going to be opportunities that go just to those contract vehicles, and they're often competed amongst the primes and the subs that own that contract vehicle. For those opportunities, you either are not even going to see them if you don't own the contract vehicle, or you might see something on sam.gov that's a notice like U.S. Air Force intends to award, 20 cybersecurity services, blah, 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 on NASA Soup, or we intend to award on GSA, right? So you might see that, but you might not even see that.
Yeah.
So what Govly does is it gives people a way that don't own those contract vehicles to actually find these opportunities with prime contractors that own the contract vehicle. Would you say that's a good?
100% correct, right?
Okay.
So back to my earlier description of Govly as this platform that allows primes to ingest their contracts. Practically what that means is that all of those RFQs are then on the Govly platform and are shareable. And when I say they're shareable, I mean they're searchable, they're recordable. And when I say search, I mean you can filter them based on who the customer is. You name the filter, you can filter out all of these opportunities on the Govly platform. We use what's called Elasticsearch. It's basically a keyword search tool that would allow you to then filter all those private opportunities, is what I'm going to refer to them as. So those are the SOUP opportunities, the ITES opportunities that are really only shared with the primes on that contract. It allows you as a user to search those and see those in real time because the primes are on our platform. Those primes are ingesting those contracts. And so it's like a think of it as like a portal of visibility into these private contract feeds. So you can then save searches, right? If you want to be notified the instant an opportunity mentioning Dell Inspiron lands, you can do that in Govly, and one lands from the Army, and you'll know about it. And that's kind of the power, because if you save that same search on sam.gov, you're not going to see the ITES 3H opportunity that comes out. You're not.
Yeah.
It's private. It's, like you said, pre-competed, private.
Definitely not. I mean, I talk a lot about, being focused and having a plan, selling to the government for these small businesses. So if you are, now when we're talking about Govly, for now, we're talking about companies that are kind of in that IT, cybersecurity, maybe SaaS space,
Yeah.
maybe a reseller. But I think there's probably a
Yep.
lot of resellers that are primes on here. But when you have your plan, when you know who you're selling to, when you know what your niche is going to be, you have to have a way of finding opportunities, and you have to have a way of finding them before that contract comes out as well, right? So
Right.
what we were talking about in the first episode, which is what was really intriguing to me, is now this opens up the aperture for everybody that doesn't have these vehicles. Now I can find out about opportunities that these companies will have.
Right.
They're not all necessarily going to be like RFP, RFQs. Is that correct? Some of them will be sold
Correct.
like sources
Well,
sought, right?
yeah, exactly. So, you'll find market research requests. You'll find RFIs coming through here. Sources sought, for example, right? You'll find all of that stuff here on Govly. And again, our idea is not only can you find it here, but can we automate the identification of those opportunities for you, so that you're not having to come into Govly every day and search like you would Google, let's say, right?
Right.
Like, how can we automate this deal identification for you? And then when you start finding deals, how can you dive a little deeper and understand who's really purchasing this product that I want to sell, and how have their purchasing trends changed over time, and where might they be going, right?
Yeah.
That's the whole idea.
No, it's a very powerful tool. For some small businesses, subcontracting is their primary way of selling to the government. And there's actually a lot of benefit to that, whether we're talking about kind of building a history of past performance, even as a sub, or just utilizing these vehicles and the opportunities and the reputation of the companies you're working with. There's a lot of reasons to approach things this way. Now, you guys have something pretty incredible coming up here, which really speaks to how you identify opportunities before that solicitation, right? So we know, if you've been doing this for a while, you know that a sources sought is a way of identifying an opportunity. That's the government saying, hey, I'm looking to do my research and kind of see what's available, see what companies could participate. But, and what I do with my clients is we'll go a lot deeper than that, and kind of look further out. We'll use relationships, we'll use expiring contracts, kind of trying to figure out when a contract's going to be recompeted, for instance, would be an example of a tactic or strategy. But you guys have developed something that's going to save an incredible amount of time as far as that's concerned. And I think this needs to be a key part of anyone's approach to the government. Why don't you tell us what the big announcement is with Govly and what you guys are working on?
Yeah, yeah. So, the approach that you outlined there is absolutely right. And we had to ask ourselves, how can we make it easier for businessmen, businesswomen trying to do this? How can we make it easier for them to get it done? And naturally, your brain starts floating to, I've seen ChatGPT in the news, and I've seen AI and how it's going to change things for us, and we see the same news articles, right? But we think about, how do we apply those to the Govly tool for our customers, for our customer segment. And it eventually led us to our latest tool/feature that will be generally available later this month, called Govly Predict. Essentially, what we have done is we've taken our unique database of public and private government RFQs. And when I say private, I'm talking back to those contract vehicles that were pre-competed, right? That's what I'm referring to when I say private. We've taken that database. We've then taken a large language model that the underlying model for ChatGPT and tweaked it, right? You have to train these models on your specific application. So we have a killer engineering team, and they trained that model on government procurement, namely these big contracts and SAM.gov that we focus on our platform, and have gotten it to a point at which it is predicting or projecting opportunities out into the future based on historical purchasing trends of federal customers. If there's one thing that AI is good at, and there's a lot that it's not good at, but if there's one thing it's good at, it's finding trends and leveraging those trends to pull out useful information. And that's the exact use case that we have for it now. So in simplest terms, we give it this database of RFQs. It looks at the RFQs. It says, okay, what are some trends we're seeing? We then compare those trends with what actually happened. And the model begins to learn and get more and more accurate at projecting what is going to happen on the future. And so in tactical speak, that means it will be projecting when Fort Rucker will be procuring Dell laptops based on the historical procurement of Dell laptops for Fort Rucker, for instance.
It's pretty amazing.
Yeah. It was, I'll tell you, it's really easy to have good ideas, but it's incredible when the good ideas come to life. And obviously that comes down to our engineering team ability to work. But when we first saw it kind of give an output, and then we tested the output and found that it was accurate, it was like, this is incredible.
Yeah.
This is it.
And I was honestly, I was a little skeptical when I heard about this because, AI can be flawed, certainly, right? But I think we've
definitely.
probably at this point, most of us have played with Chat GPT, and, some of it's really good. It has some really incredible features. Some of it does not, right? Some of it is kind of blatantly false. But when I started diving in, because I'm like, oh, you're going to predict what the government's doing? Because there's so many moving pieces, right? But when you started talking about how, for instance, it will look at, it knows that the Army maybe put a company, maybe it was Dell. You were just talking about Dell. We can use them as an example. Maybe it put them on a contract for 3 years to provide a service, right? Yeah. And we'll just take it off of the laptops for a second, because I think that's a little bit different. But if they put a 3-year services contract with a certain company, well, now it can predict, it's going to know that, 3 years later, that contract is either going to have to be extended or recompeted. And now it can also take some of the guesswork out, because it will look at the trends and know, all right, well, we know the contract expires on this date, probably needs to be competed before that. And historically, how early are the agencies doing that? How early is this agency doing that? Oh, we could see usually it's 3 months or 4 months or 5 months before that. So now you're getting a predictor of these dates. So for any small business that's in this space, really any space, right? So whether you can or cannot use Govly, what Govly does do is, instead of me or you having to go through and slog through, contracts that you found, and okay, it's going to expire in a year and a half. We think it's going to be competed here, which takes a lot of time. Now you can go to Govly and use this predict feature, and it's just going to tell you, we think X, Y, and Z. So now that as a small business, that gives you a lot of, or a large business, frankly, that gives you saves you a lot of time, and it's giving you the opportunity to start engaging on these opportunities early. So whether that's engaging with the prime on the recompete, whether that's engaging with the agency itself, there's a lot of different ways to go through that. And I say the agency itself because I'm separating myself from Govly a little bit here, right? So I know Govly is mainly, you've got a bunch of primes in there. As a business owner, you're going to have to decide when it's appropriate for you to sub and when it's appropriate for you to prime. So let me ask you this. Maybe you could walk us through just a generic example of company goes into Govly, and they, like, I'm looking at all the contract vehicles, and they discover something's coming up on CIO, CS, or Seaport NXG, something that's a perfect fit for them. What does the process look like once they see it on Govly? Now, how do they move forward?
Yeah. So right now, the process is what I call a white glove process in that you'll probably be talking with me. I do a lot of our onboarding, so you'll be familiar with me. You'll have my email, all that stuff, right? And you'll come to me and you'll say, "Hey, Oliver, I found this opportunity. It came out on the small business set aside. I don't know any primes on that contract, right? I don't have a business relationship with any, or I should say, a solidified business relationship with anyone on that contract. I've maybe met them, right? But I've never actually submitted a bid through them. Can you make some warm introductions for me and help me find someone whom I can work with?" And the good thing about Govly, the power of Govly and the network of primes that we've created is that we can do just that, right? We have a virtual Rolodex of folks that we could introduce this small business to. And the truth is, the first introduction is going to come right when you join the platform, because you can't even see CIOCS until you have some sort of a business relationship with the prime on that contract. So that's kind of the first step. And if for whatever reason, that first prime who you met during prime or primes, I should say, who you met during the onboarding process can't facilitate or doesn't want to facilitate the bid, then you come back to me and we go make introductions to another, right? I mean, the primes at the end of the day are looking to work with businesses who have a competitive advantage in one way or another. Maybe it's you come with prior experience in the commercial space with a long track record of success in XYZ implementations or services. And that's going to make you attractive to a prime who ultimately wants more business done on their contract. And we help you find those primes.
Sure. I mean, a small business may not be considering what goes on in the mind of a large business when they are on one of these vehicles. You don't have to necessarily be a large business, by the way, to be a prime on these contract vehicles. There's a lot of small businesses on there. So you may be dealing with a small or medium-sized company, and they have to take a lot of considerations when they're deciding whether they're going to engage on an opportunity, right? So they may see, like you said, there's so many different factors involved, but the office you're dealing with, maybe they're considering a small business award. Maybe they want to award it to a veteran-owned business. Maybe they have a requirement for subcontracting, and something that you possess could kind of hit one of those requirements. Again, or it could just be the relationships, right? I mean, it might be you have a relationship with Lifecycle Management Center at Wright Pat or Hanscom Air Force Base, and that's what they want to utilize, your past performance. So you just never know.
Yeah, no, you're 100% right. And just to be really clear about kind of the process, right? When you're onboarded to Govly, prime introductions are made at the very beginning, because the only way you see these contracts is through a business relationship with the prime. Yet the primes on our platform have gotten so much value from all of the introductions the Govly platform has provided for them that it's kind of a loop, in that you come on board, you get visibility at the same time that you meet the primes, because that's the only way you get visibility. And eventually, more folks will come on board, meet the primes. You will do more business with the primes. Your network expands, and obviously, you become a more and more attractive sub.
Yeah, I mean, that's even more, I think, beneficial than what I was originally thinking. So it's not I guess you could say, a virtual environment completely, where I pay for a Govly, I log in, I see a bunch of opportunities just like SAM.gov or GovWin IQ or any of the other search platforms. This is, I join Govly after whatever vetting process you have, and you're making introductions between my business and some of these primes. And that's very powerful in itself. And then it sounds like, for the most part, as long as you've got a solid business, that you're going to now have access to the feed of opportunities that are coming in through some of these vehicles that they possess.
Correct. Right. 100% correct. Because legally, I can't, and these primes, they can't just share their private contract vehicles with anyone. There has to be a business relationship. And so that's step 1A of onboarding. And step 1 would be me creating an account for you and training you on it. But 1A is those relationships and solidifying at least a few relationships.
Right.
You mentioned small business, and that's one set aside of a long list of set asides, right? Service disabled, veteran owned small business. And so chances are you may need additional relationships down the line. And again, that's where Govly can come in, because we have multiple SDV OSBs on the platform, multiple women owned small businesses on the platform whom you may need to partner with in the future if an opportunity you're interested comes out on one of those set asides. So
Interesting.
that whole networking piece is it is the backbone of Govly, right?
Do you need to be a small business to join Govly?
No, not at all. You can be, shoot, we have businesses from 100,000 plus, all the way down to businesses of 2 people. I think we
Okay.
even have businesses of 1, and we have, yeah, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say where I'm going with that is you might be a large business, and a large business is defined by NAICS code typically, and
Yeah.
it's usually if you have over 500 employees or you're making over a certain amount in annual revenue, and that varies depending on what you're selling. But you could be a large business transitioning from being a small business. I just did a podcast episode on this with Tier 1 Performance, where, okay, well, now you are all of a sudden a large business, so you don't have that small business qualifier anymore, certification, but you're not a large defense contractor. You might still be building your company and you're paying your employees and you're going after work. So a lot of those large businesses are not going to have a whole list of government contracts, right? So they are probably interested in a lot of, because you got a lot of contract vehicles listed here. Maybe a company has GSA by the time they become a large business, but they don't have Seaport, they don't have CIO, and some of these others, and they want to see those, and they need help building relationships. So this would be a great tool for a company like that to kind of start getting access to some of that.
Oh yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And I know that as we're talking through this, we're throwing out a ton of acronyms. I can promise your listeners that if you join the tool, we offer a free version, okay, where you can use all of our features to search sam.gov, and just jump in, take a look at it. It's pretty self-explanatory, even if it sounds complicated based on all the acronyms we're throwing around. But yes, to your point, yes, there is definite benefits for those large organizations as well. And I know we've talked about primes a lot, but the truth is we have a lot of customers who are just resellers and are not primes. For whatever reason, they don't want to have the administrative burdens associated with being a prime contractor. They just want to do what they're good at, which is getting software, hardware services at a good price and working with someone who is a prime to provide the quotes and ultimately submit the bids. So that's also something very popular. It's not just a platform for primes, not even close.
Oh, sure, and that's I just want to make sure that I'm expressing what I'm thinking correctly, because to me, this seems like an amazing tool for small businesses and subs that don't have any of these vehicles.
Right.
So maybe just stating out loud, hey, you do not have to be a prime. In fact, if you don't want to be a prime, or you're new, or you're a small business, this is absolutely an amazing tool for you, because you don't have to go out and get any of these contract vehicles. It's also a great tool for primes that have these vehicles that are looking for help from subs for a variety of reasons. And a lot of it is usually you can't do all of the work yourself, because a lot of these contracts have a lot of different moving pieces. Do you think we could, and I know for those watching or listening to the podcast, this might not help, but a lot of people are going to be watching this on YouTube also. Maybe we could switch to you sharing your screen and just doing a walkthrough of Govly. Does that work?
Yeah. No, let's do it.
Awesome.
Just, pull up my screen here, and I'll give you guys.
And while you're doing that, I'll just kind of describe, what I'm seeing on here and some of the things that I would like to talk about, because in Govly, and I have a Govly account that I use, it lists contract vehicles. So when I use acronyms like Seaport or CIO. These are acronyms that are just names. Think of them as names for these large contract vehicles that already have companies on them. And then the government sends those companies that are on a seaport or a CIO, any company that is on that contract vehicle, they get maybe different opportunities to compete for contracts. And something else that I think is in here, but I haven't tested it out, so maybe you can tell me, is you have a workspace stage that talks about qualifying, submitted, quoted. So it looks like there may be a way to track some of the opportunities that you're working on in here. And maybe you could answer that, because now I'm looking at the screen.
Awesome. Yeah, no, you are right across the board. So for those of you who can see my screen here, and I'll just zoom in a little bit more. This is the Govly landing page. We call this our opportunities dashboard. When you sign in, whether it's through our free account or you end up moving into a paid account, this is the page you'll land on. You've got left-hand side and the right-hand side. The left-hand third of your screen has all of the filters that allow you to filter the results you see on the right-hand side of your screen, okay? There are a few really key filters to understand because I think they're the most powerful ones. There's a date range filter, which serves really two purposes, right? It will keep you up to date the moment new RFQs are coming out on these public and private contracts, but it also allows you to conduct historical research. So you can go back in time and say, when was the last time this customer organization, so maybe the DOJ, purchased change management services, right? You can adjust the date range, enter the term change management services in our Elasticsearch dialog box, and it will show you those things. The other filters that I'll call out are obviously the contract vehicle. So we've talked about CIOCS. I think SOUP was mentioned at the beginning of the call. SOUP is SEWP, not like the food. You can filter those results based on contract vehicle. So if, for instance, you are only really interested in CIOCS, you can go ahead and just click CIOCS, and now we're looking at all CIOCS opportunities that have been posted over the past 3 months. And the reason I say 3 months is because that's a date range we had set, right?
Okay. Can we maybe try a search and see what pops up?
Yeah, let's do it.
Let's try metadata tagging.
All right. Yeah, let me just do this.
I was going to say,
those of you who
sometimes
can see
metadata is one word, sometimes it's two. I've seen it both ways.
Okay, all right, and that's good to know. And if folks are watching this online, you might be wondering, these terms and this is called an operator. I'm not sure how those works. This is part of the onboarding process, right? And even if you end up going with a free account, you're always welcome to reach out to me, and I can help you make sure that your search terms are working correctly. So let me just do this. You mentioned sometimes
and I'll describe what you're doing there. So for anyone that's used another search tool, different contracts, there's different ways to search through contracts. Sometimes, if you're used to kind of a higher end or system like a GovWin IQ, or you're using like a GovTribe, a lot of them use similar methods. So you can, for instance, you could put in what Oliver just put in here is you could put metadata in quotes. You could put or tagging. It's ways of looking at different keywords. So I can look through a bunch of contracts and see if anything is popping up. You might be able to look for just a certain set of keywords that are all together. So if I put tagging, you don't want it. If I put metadata tagging in some search engines, it might give me contracts or opportunities that just have the word tagging in it, right? Or, if I use cybersecurity, cybersecurity is going to be in a lot of different contracts that probably have nothing to do with you unless you qualify that with another word. So just as a explanation here of what we're looking at.
Yeah, no, that's 100% spot on. And as soon as we searched that, our results were reduced from 10,000 plus to 872. And what
Okay.
that is telling us is that of those 10,000 plus results we were originally searching, 872 of them contained one of these phrases. So for those who are listening along, our phrases are metadata and metadata tagging. Those are the two phrases we are looking for. And those are what we are now seeing. So there's a quantum maintenance opportunity that came out on Soup earlier today, whopping 30 minutes ago, for the Goddard Space Flight Center.
Okay.
There are some SAM.gov opportunities. There's kind of an interesting one down here. So this is one that came out on GSA, and it's for Generation 3 technology services. It's a sources sought, right? So back to our conversation earlier, this is something that's pretty early in the procurement process.
Right.
Within Govly, you can see some of the other information, right? When it was received, when it expires, who requested it. And this is the Office of the Secretary of Defense who published this. Now, you can click on the title of the opportunity within Govly, and this will give you access to all of those details. When I say all of the details, I mean all of the important details,
Right.
including attachments that really outline what is being requested. Now, for those of you watching, you might notice that, hey, the POC, the point of contact for this opportunity, their email is blurred out. Why is that? And the reason is because this opportunity is being shown to you via a primes contract. Therefore, if you need to reach out to the customer contact for any reason, you would need to do that through the prime. We provide the prime and their contact information all here on the same screen within Govly, so that you can just reach out to one of the users at that organization, and they then can submit clarifying questions on your behalf. So again, it's all about making it easier for you as a sub or a prime, but you as a sub, to collaborate with the prime who has access to that contract.
That's a good point, because I would not look at this as a tool, if you're a business owner, to find opportunities before the contract vehicle has been selected, to see if you can slip your way in there, right? That's the reason that, if they're coming out and they're just going to the businesses that are listed as primes on these vehicles, then they already know who they want to, how they want to award the contract, at least for the most part. So if it's GSA, and by the way, those contacts that you blurred out, that email is probably to somebody that's working at GSA. So typically by the time at least my experience is, in the government doing this type of work, once you're kind of looking to pursue something through GSA, one of the values of that for an organization is that GSA handles a lot of that contracting process for you, and it lifts the burden of the organization, I guess you could say. Whereas others will have the POC that's actually in the unit, maybe the program manager or the contracting officer at like a base if it's an Army product. But often if the Army is using GSA, you're going to get a GSA contact, and you want to go through the prime, because the prime is the one that's going to have that relationship there, and it was sent to them. So I just wanted to kind of clarify that and maybe add a garnish to what you just said.
Yeah, no, that's spot on. And again, the core here to Govly is relationships. We call them partnerships, but it's the idea that you come into Govly, we help make introductions to the primes with access to these opportunities. At that point, once you guys have that business relationship, you can then see the entirety of these contract vehicles and the feeds, the opportunities associated with those vehicles, and then partner with your partner, all here within the Govly platform. You mentioned workspaces. I just clicked thumbs up on this opportunity. There's a lot that does on the back end, but essentially it keys our platform to, or it triggers it, that you as a user are interested in this RFQ, and if anything changes, if there are modifications released, if there are Q&As answered, you want to know about it immediately. The second thing it does is it creates a workspace. A workspace is a collaboration environment where you can attach pricing documentation, you can write instructions, you can adjust the stage of the opportunity. So let's say you are a sub to a prime. You are responsible for providing that prime with a quote, which then that prime will go ahead and submit to the customer. You can come into this workspace. You can add that partner team member. So maybe I really want to work this opportunity with Digital Plaza Direct.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I can add someone from Digital Plaza Direct. I can let them know that I have provided a quote by updating the status of this opportunity.
Okay.
And they will be instantly notified that Oliver Taylor of Govly Demo Enterprises has attached a quote to GSA RFQ 1619369. They will then come into Govly, pull down your quote, and submit it. In this case, it would be through eBuy, right? Because this is a GSA opportunity. And in that way, you can do all of that partnering, all that collaboration, the quoting, answering and asking questions across team. You can do that all within Govly in a secure manner.
And how about all of that is incredible. And this is a very, it's a very focused way of trying to sell to the government, because this is I'm going to focus on this from like the subcontractor point of view, right? If you determine that subcontracting is a path, it might be your primary path to selling to the government, you could literally just focus on using Govly to establish these relationships and to start the bidding process on some of these items. I mean, one of the benefits of being a sub is that the heavy burden is really on the prime to put a proposal together and to submit opportunities. So you're eliminating burden for yourself. You guys are facilitating meeting these businesses and also helping you automate your search for different opportunities. There's a lot of value here. What do you participate in any way with things like teaming agreements and that type of thing? Or is that beyond kind of your awareness? Is that just between the prime and the sub?
Yeah, so great question. It's one we get quite often. And the answer to that is that's between the prime and the sub.
Okay.
We keep our hands out of teaming agreements. Ultimately, we feel like it's up to the two business owners or business decision makers to come to an agreement on what their partnership is going to look like, because at the end of the day, they're all unique, right? Yeah. So that's how we approach that circumstance right now.
And I mean, that makes a lot of sense, because usually there's lawyers involved, especially if you're talking about bigger companies, and that would be impossible, I would think, for you guys to manage. Although you may, at some point in the future, create just a generic like teaming agreement document that maybe people could access and start the process. But a lot of I would say larger companies probably already have something that they use. So interesting, very interesting. Is there something else before we leave this screen? Is there anything else you wanted to kind of walk through?
No, nothing's really jumping out to me. I mean, I could obviously spend a whole hour on here like a typical demo.
Sure.
But this is kind of the core. The only thing I didn't share was that you could save this search, right? So if I just click this save button, it will save this search, and then I, as a user, will be instantly notified when a new RFQ lands that matches the filters and search terms I have set for the specific search. So I could save it, close out Govly, and if a new opportunity comes across Soup later today that mentions metadata or metadata tagging, I'll receive an instant email letting me know of that.
Gotcha.
That's kind of the core safe search deal.
And then soon there'll also be a screen in here for the predictive opportunities.
Right. Yes, absolutely. So essentially how that will look is in the upper left-hand corner of this home screen, if you will, on Govly, there will be a new drop-down that will allow you to conduct a prediction search. And what this is basically going to do is this is basically going to predict opportunities for specific search terms and filters that you set, right? The reason we're probably not getting any results on these search terms right now is because with this demo environment, I only have the soup contract connected to it right now. We don't have GSA connected to our demo environment. We don't have
Sure.
CIOCS connected.
Well, it's not out
yeah.
yet, right? I thought it would
No.
just be nice to kind of show, hey, this is what's coming. And what is the timeline on that again?
So it'll be out later this month.
Okay.
I would guess probably the week of the 17th, possibly the week of the 24th. My engineering team will probably hate me for mentioning those dates, but that's when I feel very confident it will be out and it'll be generally available to all of our users.
Okay. And then at the time of this recording, right now it's April 7th, 2023. This may or may not be out before the 17th. So we'll see. People may be hearing this for the first time and able to go in and see this predictive AI within Govly at the time of the recording, which would be great. Let's jump out of this screen for a second here. Okay. And just as we're coming to the end of the hour, just wanted to wrap up with a few things. One is that, we've been talking about this for a while now, but you actually have an incredible offer for DoD Contract Academy listeners, which is 30% off of the normal Govly price, which is incredible considering the savings and the value that they would get with Govly. So in order to do that, all someone would have to do, from my understanding, is just when they reach out to you through Govly or set up a demo, just mention that you heard it on the DoD Contract Academy, and that'll set you up with a 30% off.
Yep, that's totally correct. So everyone on my sales team is aware of our relationship with DoD Contract Academy. And so if you sign up for a demo, you may very well get me on the demo. You may also get one of my other team members on the demo. And if you just mention, hey, Rick's podcast sent me or DoD Contract Academy sent me, we'll know exactly what that means. And yeah, you'll get that 30% off mark.
Okay. No, that's great. And why don't you share with the listeners just where do they go? So what website should they go to? What are some of the initial steps they want to take if they want to either sign up or get a demo or what have you?
Yeah, definitely. So it's really easy. You just go to www.govly.com or go on Google and just type in govly.com. And you click it, you'll land on our Govly homepage. You'll know you're in the right spot. It's a pretty kind of dark screen with blue letters. It says Govly all over. There's a button in the middle that will allow you to request a demo. There's also an overview video on our home screen. So if you want to check out a video of it first, you can watch that video as well. When you submit a demo request, I receive a notification. The entire organization receives a notification that there's a new demo request. And then you can either book it right there, or you can wait. One of us will reach out to you. We'll typically send some calendar links, and then you can book a time with us to hop on, give the platform a trial, and determine if there's any value in it for your business.
Excellent. Well, that's great. Hey, everyone listening, thanks for spending time with us today. I think it's a powerful tool. You obviously know I'm starting to become biased towards Govly or in favor of Govly. So check out the website. If you have any questions about that platform or questions for Oliver, you can either go to Govly or, just leave them in the comments in the podcast or in YouTube, wherever you're seeing this, LinkedIn. Let me know what you think, what maybe features you'd like to see in the future, what successes you're having, and we'll certainly address those. Oliver, thanks for coming on again and being interviewed and showing us a little bit of Govly. I think this is going to provide a lot of value for our listeners.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, hey, it's a pleasure. Thanks for having me on. I'll add one additional way for folks to get questions answered. They're welcome to shoot me an email. My email is just oliver@govly.com. So yeah.
Watch out.
So, I know. So if you have questions, feel free to reach out. I'm happy to answer them. And as you're looking through the tool, I'd love to hear any feedback that you have on the platform. Constantly improving it. So feedback is highly valued within Govly.
Well, and then you also threw the gauntlet down at the beginning of the episode. you want to beat out Mike on podcast listen. So share this with everyone you know, so
yes, please.
Oliver can win a couple beers
please.
at the end of the week here and beat his boss out on numbers of listens. Send a couple thousand emails to Oliver's email address, which he just gave you. And yeah, we'll see you next week. This is a great episode. Thanks for listening.